Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 123 of the longest tenured Denver Nuggets spin-off podcast in the world. Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets' Serbian Corner. My name is Miroslav, and before we begin, please let me remind you to like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the DNVR Sports YouTube channel and DNVR Nuggets podcast channel. The audio version is perfect for your commute or to make your office/home office time more bearable. If you're already listening to this in the audio version, you just heard the legend of Nuggets Twitter, a friend of the show, Patrick Rasmussen, and his band Rope on Fire as my new intro tune. It is a part of a song that will appear on their new album at some point in 2025. If you want to support the show more directly, you can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/MiroslavCUK, just like my Seco tier supporters, Peter Plummer and Daniel Lynch. Once again, the Pelicans game was a horrible performance against a lottery team. I won't even talk about the numbers. Nikola Jokić came into this game in power-saving mode before completely taking over in the fourth and in overtime. After the game, he said that the team seems to like a more condensed schedule and that they always start badly in games after extended rest. Michael Porter looked like a guy his GM is publicly offering in trades for many different dudes. He hit two big shots, but was eventually benched for the fourth quarter and the overtime. Russell Westbrook was his high-octane self, no notes there. Jamal Murray's body language, I thought, was excellent. He did have some bad turnovers and missed some shots, but I thought he came to play. He had a clutch mid-ranger that took the game to overtime and also a clutch steal in the overtime. The team overall was, on the other hand, very bad on defense. They let the home team get a 17-point lead in the third before mounting a comeback. They were actually up 5 points with 3 minutes to go in the regulation, but had very sloppy clutch offense for their own high standards and almost lost the game. Next, Suns game, first blood. No Jamal, ankle injury. Jokić had 2 rebounds in the first quarter and 0 for the rest of the game. Sounds like a disaster, right? Wrong. Playing the Suns is always a chance for a get-right game. Michael Porter masterclass, mostly from the paint. Westbrook was a maestro setting up his teammates. Jalen Pickett got another chance and played wonderfully. 8 assists and 11 points for plus 17. And the big guys, Gordon and Joker, a.k.a. Splash Towers, copyright Voja Medic, made 6 out of 9 threes. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I ended up listening to the PHNX Suns podcast after the game. 27-point win and a Munder. But then, Suns game, first blood, part 2. The two teams played under air conditioning in the Arizona desert, so our boys Brendan Voigt and Harrison Wind wouldn't have to spend all their Christmas Day in the arena. Well, just like the second movie about John Rambo wasn't as good, so was this second game versus the Suns. The Nuggets lost both the first and the third quarter, also known as the not a second without Jokić quarters. And when that happens, there's almost no hope for the team from Colorado. The Suns were in the lead for almost all 48 minutes, and Nikola Jokić only had 8 points in the second half. Add the fact that he only recorded 2 assists, and that will tell you more about this game than anything else. Jamal returned after 1 game missed due to injury, and the team's rhythm got immediately thrown. Bad rebounding, bad defense, and a deserved loss. Okay, that's enough of an intro. It is time to bring some reinforcements in. First, let's start with a guest calling from Maryland. Rayvone Hackshaw is an elite bowler, the tallest man among the regulars at the DNVR bar, an archer, a dog whisperer, and the host of one of my favorite basketball podcasts, Four Corners. Welcome back to the show, Ray. I cannot hear you. You're muted.
Muted. Preemptive Christosedodiciu, frate.
So tell me, how was your Christmas Eve and Christmas Day?
Good. Great to see family, see friends. Re-engage with humidity, as you mentioned. I'm back in Maryland, so It's nice to be among the loved ones.
Did you become a Wizards fan again, being in Maryland, or?
Not again. Never was.
Smart. Next up, calling from Indianapolis, Indiana, the place where Vlade Divac and Peja Stojkovic beat George Karl, Andre Miller, Reggie Miller in the FIBA World Cup quarterfinal en route to their 5th World Cup gold medal. A father, a grandfather, a comedian, producer, director, actor, and whatnot. It's Andy Juett. What up, dog?
Hey guys, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Boxing Day. Out here in Indianapolis, visiting some family, and just thinking about the basketball greats, including the Serbians who came here and did a great thing. But if I throw a chair or get angry, it's just Bobby Knight just raging through me, because I just like to see some good basketball at some point. And since I don't, it's kind of a. Oh, sorry, I need to hand off the car keys. This is not
it
big
sounds like
reveal. This isn't $1 million studio, everybody.
for a second it
Apparently,
sounded
the
like
food that I just picked up was still in the car.
For a second it sounded like what you're talking into the microphone is a secret, so you had to stop talking while somebody else
That was just my instinct. I'm like,
the
why are
room,
you in
yeah.
here? Oh, I've ruined everybody's meal.
So, if I understood correctly, your Christmas included a lot of driving. How are the roads between Colorado and
did.
Indiana? Was
Not
there any?
bad.
No.
No, actually, it was ideal when we drove out. Like, it was 12 hours the first day, and then like 4.5 the second day. And you always worry about that when you commute, in a car. But the weather was perfect.
Okay, last, and let's be real, the least, an audio and video professional, which doesn't prevent him from having audio issues before every podcast, a former host of The Dig, even former Denver Stiff, calling from the city of brotherly love, it's Jeremy Poley. What's up?
Sorry that I'm here. I think you set that up pretty anticlimactic, so that I could just show my face and everybody be disappointed. So thank you for that. But I'll have you know, I'm going on 7 hours of sleep over the past 3 days.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And
I was like, quit bragging. Yeah.
well, my mind has never been clearer. The thoughts I'm having, I'm more confident than I've ever been in my life, and I know what to do for the Nuggets. So I'm ready, man. You're gonna get the truth today.
So Philly won against Boston last night. What was
God.
the atmosphere in the city?
It's so cold. Nobody was anywhere. I now live, fortunately, right on like the most kind of popular corner in the Philly like cool neighborhood.
Quit bragging.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. That I'm like, how do I back off of this brag that I just did? There's no backing off. Yeah, I live on the popular corner in the cool neighborhood, where we even used to have the wall with the big mural of all the 76ers players that has been replaced by Phillies players. But there's nobody out. There's nobody doing anything. There's nothing going on. Yeah, I don't know. Just the fact that Embiid is still alive after falling once, I guess.
Oh my God.
Is the Christmas miracle.
Did he play last night? I missed it. Did he? I saw the fall and I just couldn't believe it. Did he end up playing?
Yeah, and he actually had a pretty good game.
Okay, I didn't see it.
Yeah, Maxi had a pretty good game as well. Okay, it was actually pretty crazy for me to be able to watch like 3 games live in a row, because they started at like 6 a.m. in the West Coast, which is thank you for that, NBA. But yeah, it was cool. And yeah, actually the only game I didn't watch live was the Nuggets game. I had the pleasure of rewatching that Audacity after it actually happened. But okay, let's now go there. We had a chance for a perfect week had the Nuggets played well last night, but they didn't. And now, and I really like the thought from my buddy D-Line last night at the pregame show. He said the Nuggets won against Phoenix by 27 points without Jamal. So whatever happens today, everybody's going to blame Jamal for it. Is it realistic to expect another 27-point win? And yeah, it happened. So the Nuggets are right now 11-11 when Jamal is in the lineup, which is, of course, a 41-win pace. And they are 5-1 without him, which is a 68-win pace, although on a small sample, I have to admit that. They get a lot more easy points in transition when Jamal is not playing, and also cannot be pressured on the ball as well as with him. So, Ray, I'm going to start with you here, because you are the most level-headed person here. Am I overreacting to the fact that Nuggets actually play great this year without their second best player and their second highest player, highest paid player, or is it just a small sample?
It's a little bit of both. I think it's frustrating, and I kind of share that frustration that Jamal is playing as poorly as he has in the first quarter of the year, right? At the same time, you can also look at the history of his sort of growth curve over each season and say, like, hey, this is pretty much what he does every year. And to that point, I'm trying to give it a little bit of, like, let it simmer, let the stew sort of marinate. And hopefully by, March, he starts to look a little bit better than he does now, which looks a little bit better than he did 2 months ago, and so on.
So you are willing to wait until March. You're giving him the benefit of the doubt until March before you give up on the season? Or his
It's
season?
not even so much the benefit of the doubt. I also don't think there's much they can do about it. Like it's like an unfortunate reality, really, that if Jamal is who he needs to be, I think the Nuggets will be fine. If Jamal isn't who he needs to be, I don't know if there's any way to fix that.
Andy, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, it's obviously a bummer that regardless of that discussion, the Nuggets aren't very fun to watch right now. And it's very up and down, and even the ups are not like that up. And so watching Jamal early season, yes, he's always a slow starter. He plays his way into shape, all those kind of things about not his reputation, but what we can expect from Jamal per se. And, it is pretty nice. It's like we had like that 4-game stretch this last week where he was looking pretty decent, and, everybody's trying not to say that he's back. And I think they're right. Maybe he's not back. But I think it's a wider problem, and I think Jamal is like the poster boy for it, which is the NBA season, the preseason, or excuse me, the regular season versus the playoffs. So just like hockey, just like baseball, it's a very long season, and so it's such a long season that the NBA itself is like, hey, in the parts of the season where not everyone on the team, the coaching staff, and in the stands is as engaged as we need to be, we're going to have a big tournament before Christmas and around Thanksgiving. And then, I feel like we're in this no man's land, December, January, February, where people are like ramping up their quality of play. And back in the day, you used to have teams, they were driven by, I think players like generationally were as good or whatever. They're emotionally maybe less intelligent, but it was better to watch because they hated each other. They actually were like, I'm going to like hip check Buck Williams into the boards, or, hack Michael Jordan's arm to the point where he doesn't want to shoot free throws. Certainly, obviously, Jokic's arms looked pretty red last night, by the way. But the point is that, I don't think Jamal he wants to play hard. I don't think he doesn't want to, or he doesn't enjoy it. I think the players today, and I sound like I'm 106. There are certainly players that have played hard in every game. Christian Braun's one of them. Didn't have a good game last night. I think they exist, but they're the exception now and not the norm a little bit. because it's not fueled by irrational hate. It's not fueled by I have to win this game and have one over on the Suns because I don't like them. Although Jamal, even with the loss last night, I think is 17-5 lifetime against the Suns. So there's been plenty of owning the Suns. I'm definitely of the mindset we don't need to read into it too much. I am of the mindset that like habits are habits, and if we play hard together for 4 months and then play the playoffs, probably going to be better in the playoffs. If we play hard for 1.5 of the 4 months and then expect to rise and have it all handled in the playoffs, doesn't feel awesome. Ultimately, I just like to enjoy watching the games more than I am right now.
So, Jeremy, I know you think you know what you're gonna say now, but I'm gonna give you a curveball. Here's the thing. We all know that Mike Singer wrote a book on Nikola Jokić called "Why So Serious." So the big book on Jokić is out there. But you know what? The book on Jamal Murray is out there as well. Everybody knows he cannot handle on-ball pressure. Like it is something that's been going on even in 2023 playoffs. But then he had this nice valve in Bruce Brown to help him with that. And in 2024, especially, we saw in the playoffs how bad it looked, and even in this season, it's not a lot different. The NBA evolves, and players need to evolve with the NBA as well in some situations. And we all remember Roy Hibbert being an all-star player and then being out of the league 2 years later. It's because the league changed and you couldn't stay on the court as a 7'2" center that cannot do anything but rebound and shoot layups. So do you think that that the league might be running away from Jamal, or do you still believe that he has it in him and it's just we need to be patient enough to wait for it?
That's a very deep question. And I definitely need to hear your thoughts on that afterwards. I mean, I'm more of the mind that players can develop skills. It's a lot harder to develop physical attributes. It's a lot harder to develop like mental instinct. And Jamal is a combo guard wearing the mask of a point guard. We knew when we got him, he's not a true point guard, and he's I would say developed great as far as what he used to be. I remember his first season, he couldn't even pass the ball to Jokić. He didn't know how. Second season, he picked up 1 or 2 tricks. Third season, he was able to play a good offense and get Jokić going. But will he ever be able to handle himself under pressure? That's something that I'm not so sure about. And I don't know. I'd have to say no to your question, actually. I just because I don't know that I'm seeing the NBA moving in a direction where all of a sudden Jamal being bad at on-court pressure is like all of a sudden a completely different, like now he's the Achilles heel of our team because he can't handle that.
But the teams are getting longer. The main teams in the league, like OKC, like Boston, they have very lengthy wing players that can overwhelm Jamal with their length and their speed because he's not quicker than most guards in the league.
Well, I think now you're hitting on what might be one of the biggest problems is, has he slowed down from injury? Because the guy that we saw, 2 seasons ago, or even back in the bubble, like really, you go back to the bubble, you would not be on this podcast right now saying, Jamal's like a slower point guard. He was dishing it out, absolutely dishing it out. And now at this point, something I've been seeing lately is when you play defense, it's not about really shutting the other person down. Can we keep the other team from scoring a single point in this game? Obviously, no. It's about trying to affect their percentage of success each step of the way. And so the point of attack on the perimeter, if you're a defender, how much can you decrease them at that point? Can you throw them off enough where when they pivot and they do get around you, do they have a direct line to the hoop and they're well balanced and they're ready for it? Or did you, affect them more than that? And now they need to pass it off or they're going to take a lower percentage shot. And Jamal used to be able to curve in and out, almost like a skier, a lot more effectively than we see these days. Well, I don't want to say a lot more effectively. Like it might even just be a little bit, but that's the difference between being an all-star in the NBA and being a backup point guard. And that's where it's at for me with Murray is, for me, it's actually very hard to dissect him down to you're now a bad player because of this. And I mean, his 3-point shot isn't there right now. As Andy brought up, like, that's kind of the Jamal we know. We should expect it to come back. It's not great to see, especially when there's maybe negative body language, but it's been hard for me. Like, I can't really jump on these bandwagons that, oh, Murray's a terrible player, because I can't really point my finger at, he's terrible because of this or because of this. It feels like just kind of like an overall, like it's just not kind of clicking. And that's a really hard thing to criticize the player for. So you tell me where you're at with that question.
We will continue on that after these short messages. And guys, if you're thinking about getting new floors, look no further. Empire Today is there. So many people already enjoy Empire Today floors. Just ask them about their great experience. With Empire Today, you get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is the best place to get new flooring. So, of course, they have copycats, but they can beat them on quality, service, or speed. So they use phrases like lowest price in the business. That's because they offer low-quality products that Empire Today simply won't carry. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. That's why what they leave out of their selection is as important as what they put in. Their virtual floor designer is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space, including your room. Flooring is all Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident you're getting honest, upfront advice. They service their own warranties. If an issue does arise, just call Empire. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code DNVR. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/DNVR for details. That's empiretoday.com/DNVR. Okay, we are back, and yes, we are having a heated discussion on Jamal Murray, and I don't want to dump on him. I want to help him and help Michael Malone find a solution for what we are seeing so far, because 11-11 would be below play-in level, and that would be a complete disaster 2 years after a championship. This is not acceptable. So my idea here is a blasphemous one, because nobody thinks it's a smart idea in the NBA world, and that is to reduce Jamal's minutes per game by benching him, by starting him off the bench and controlling the amount of minutes he plays to, let's say, 28 minutes or something like that. Not close the games with him until he gets into better shape, and then, of course, let him ramp up and get back into both closing lineup and starting lineup. Now, the second option would be to treat him as a guy who is not healthy, which might be right. We might be talking about shin splints. We might be talking about hamstring. We might be talking about the plantar fasciitis. I don't know what's going on. If he's not healthy, the Nuggets need to be open about it and let him rest. Let him heal his wounds. Let him not play for a month and then get him back and then get him into the. And this is, by the way, the idea of Gordon Gross from a couple of weeks ago. He is just really good assessing stuff like that. So these are the two solutions I'm offering to you guys, and you tell me if you like either of those or if you would like to go with a third one. Ray, let's start with you again.
So talking a little bit about like the weaknesses that we're talking, that I think maybe is he being phased out of the league, I'm not sure, but I do think he's creating a particular vulnerability because he needs help. Right now, as he needs help from another guard, from another perimeter player to do things like bringing up the ball, initiating offense, collapsing defenses, things like that. And that kind of runs counter to the modern developments of putting more length on the floor. I think that is something that at least I think about in a lot of these games. Why are they having so much difficulty rebounding? Well, they're real small in a lot of, especially non-Jokić lineups. Although DeAndre's been good, relatively, for until he's not. But hey, I would be very open to him playing less, even if he starts. I know there's a lot of reputational and ego-driven things about that. Maybe not 39 minutes. Can I get 30 minutes? Can I get 28 minutes? Especially for someone who does have these sorts of overuse injuries, talking about plantar fasciitis, shin splints, things like that. That makes a lot of sense to me as something that would maybe mitigate. You can put out more energy in those 30 minutes than you would in 40, just more efficiently. I don't know. I think that could be helpful.
Andy?
We live in a world where the top paid players play a lot of minutes. So the expectation and the hope, of course, and the plan from the the get-go of any season is that if they're being paid $100 million to $400 million, they're going to play a lot of basketball. But in reality, okay, let's just talk about, you mentioned Mike Singer, now the director of strategy for the Nuggets. And and not that he has purview over this per se, but as a matter of strategy, if we didn't care about egos, if we didn't care about the norm of these high-paid players playing all the time, we are currently in the era of high-paid players playing the least they've ever played. They have mega contracts, so it's a little different than, say, the 80s or 90s, and so the expectation should be higher, right? But let's talk about actually the most important thing, winning a championship, okay? So for me, it's like, Booth has enlisted all these young guys and drafted and acquired all these young guys who I think are fun, good players. I think we saw that with Jalen Pickett, a couple days ago. He was balling out in the G League. He's got nothing but hate for like a year at least. And he went, what did he do? He worked his ass off, went to the G League, started throwing out triple doubles, and can competently be a second or third, probably point guard or fourth point guard in the NBA. I'm not saying he's the answer, but what I'm getting to is I think we should, if there were no consequences, you shut down Jamal for a month, Luka style, right? And what they're about to do with Luka, it seems like. Shut him down for a month. Like, he's just been playing and playing and playing. Right or wrong, what Jeremy was saying about getting to the basket, about being, what you were saying about having on-ball pressure be a problem. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he's dunking over Giannis. Like Jeremy said in the bubble, he's explosive to the basket. He's hanging in the air for 10 minutes, coming up one side of the basket, doing a reverse layup on the other side of the basket. That is not what we're seeing. Jamal is a very crafty player. And I think one of the crafty things he's woven into his game is the tough fadeaway shots that he's really good at. And he can create separation. What he's not doing, that's still happening. What he's not doing is taking anybody off the dribble very often. He's not leading the break very often. His assists are up, so I think we should give him credit for playmaking the last couple of years, to be honest, a little bit more than he gets. But he's just not, to me, he seems like he needs, I'm struggling because we need to take pressure and heat off, or burden off Jokić, in any way we can. Because that ox has been running for a long time, and he's been pulling the wagons for a long time. So these overtime games where he's got 42, 43 minutes, that shit's going to add up by February, right? Is as good a shape as he's in. But I would like to see, for as much as Jamal likes MMA and other physical things, it's like if a 300-pound Serbian man can go and hit the weight room after every game with Felipe Eichenberger and then stay up all night with a child, and another child now, it feels like Jamal has it in him to do these things, but I'd like the Olympics were a thing and that offered very little rest. Not that they were running like 2-a-days and whatever, but it would be kind of nice to have, since the championship, a month or two to act like normal people, work out and stay in shape, but like not just be blasting your knees every day, not whatever. So as an approach, I would have liked to see from game one, Calvin Booth and Malone on the same page of stretching out minutes for all these young players, right? If we're going to develop them. And then as we get closer, here's the rotations go like this, right? Which is usually what happens anyway. But if you're going to get down to 7 to 9 dudes, let 14 of them play, give Russ's body a rest, give Jamal's body a rest. The non-Jokić minutes is the problem. So the problem is you can never fucking give, pardon my French, Jokić a break ever, because the non-Jokić minutes are like going to Vegas. You're probably going to lose. So
Speak for yourself.
Except for
how do you think
Jeremy
how
Poley.
do you think Jer could afford a place at the best neighborhood in Philly? He's been winning in Vegas.
It's not from being good at my job.
Okay, so Jer, Ray and Andy made excellent points. Ray mentioned that Jamal needs help from the other guard in the lineup, and I agree with that. Andy mentioned that Jokić needs help from anybody in the non-Jokić minutes. Somebody that can carry the team in those 8 to 10 minutes every game when he's not playing. Are you interested in some kind of trade for the Nuggets to boost up their chances for this season?
Oh man, you're completely shifting away from Murray now.
No, you can go with in regards to Jamal and what he lacks there, and try to solve it with a trade.
Yeah, I can make a quick point on that. So you brought up, benching Jamal, playing him less, and I've got an idea. Why don't we bench you on your own show? Because that's kind of what you're asking to do. Where's the mute button that I can hit anytime you talk? It's unfortunately, it's not just about how well he's playing or not playing. There's an entire mental side to this. The team needs to see him as a leader. Westbrook suddenly starting and he's playing well, and then maybe Jamal takes back the role again, but is not playing well, and all of a sudden Westbrook is like, "What are you doing? This should be my team at this point." Other people questioning him. It's not something you can do. Unfortunately, Nuggets are a Jokić team first, Murray team second, everybody else below that, and there's not really anything you can do with that. So I am a fan of giving him less minutes here, but not so much in regards to this is how we solve the Murray situation, but because I think there's a lot of games we've been playing that are very matchup dependent. And so there's games where Watson should be playing more minutes. There's games where Strother should not be playing more minutes. There's games where maybe Pickett now should be playing more minutes. And those are situations where we should be letting that rip. And we kind of saw that with Westbrook back in that Pelicans game. Was it the Pelicans game or the first Suns game where this Pelicans game where they sat MPJ and Russell finished the game out? And that was a great opportunity I saw of Mooch. Andy and I were just talking about Mariucci. Malone, not Mooch. Him actually, adjusting to take advantage of some matchups. I was glad to see that. So I just want to put that out there that you're an insane person with insane ideas. But as far as a trade goes, yeah, man, there's some really nice looking trades there. And I just got done talking about matchups. And to me at this point, MPJ is, I think, just so clearly a matchup player. I like to be positive and optimistic. Of course, there's playoff runs that we could do depending on the matchups where he would be the guy we would want on our team more than anybody else that we might be able to trade him for. But at this point, I'm more interested in a person who can be a more traditional small forward who can, maybe not have as high of highs, as high as ceilings, but not have such low floors depending on who we're matched up against. And so the Hawks were, a team that I was really diving into. I don't know how far you want to get at this point.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
Yeah,
Well, let's couch it for the next segment, which should be really interesting. So we need to take one more short break, and don't go anywhere. Okay, we are back, and as Jeremy made a really nice transition into the third segment, as he usually does. I prefer his transitions to his takes, which is something you already know. Michael Porter has been hot and cold recently, but was much more consistent before trade rumors started to appear. So, guys, what is your stance on whether the Nuggets should keep their best shooter and second best rebounder, or try to find a different player with a lot more on-ball juice? Let's start with Andy this time.
Speaking of juice, me. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think kind of like if you're a football, and by football I mean soccer fan or American football fan, it's like people always want to fire the coach, right? Or fire so-and-so. And I'm all for that a lot of times, but it's like in the absence of that coach, who is the replacement, right? So with MPJ, it would be perfect if there were a perfect fit person to trade him for that sort of came in, didn't mess with the continuity that we've been so we've celebrated for the last 7-8 years, and kind of came in and was like, oh, with a year or two, it's like Gordon came in and was kind of like just a perfect complement right away, right? Or pretty close to right away. I think the thing that we're missing here is, because we can all argue, should they or shouldn't they go after Jimmy? Should they get weird? And Miroslav and I were talking about a little bit about, like, go after De'Aaron Fox and play Jamal at the 2 or something else. Should they go after, some of these other players, Levine? I like those ideas. I think the cool of those ideas, I like Fox because he's young and a dog and a really good, fast, unique skill set player, which I think Jokić needs to take gravity away from him. Okay. Before there was gravity away from Jokić. Not a lot of gravity away from Jokić, in my opinion. Like Gordon had a couple takes to the basket last night where I'm like, oh, that's just a man. Like in the first half, he just like went to the baseline and just like made a basket happen. Those things can happen individually on possessions. Kind of be nice to roll the dice if we're going to do it. Just rip off the Band-Aid. I think the beauty of Jokić is you can plug in players and it will not be a disaster. Like, we all love him. I mean, not we all. I wouldn't want to speak for everybody. I like MPJ a lot. I have mad respect for the journey he's gone on, where he was basically broke and thrown in the trash. And he is sort of, on a very disciplined level, gotten to a health standpoint where it's like he's probably got 5 more years at least, or whatever it is. So I hate to lose MPJ, but this is a business, right? We have the best player in the world. He's probably got another X amount of prime years, like that's not the number 10, he's probably got, of course, 3 to 6 amazing years left. And I'm not limiting this. He could have 10, but he's pulling the wagon every GD night. And it sure would be cool, as much as we all have reservations about like Zach LaVine fighting through picks and whatever. Like there's problems. Well, Zach LaVine's not the Zach LaVine of 5 years ago, even, I don't think. But he can get the ball like Bruce Brown and run the break and finish with a dunk where we're all like, holy shit, or cut to the basket. To me, it's like Miroslav always talks about, and we agree on this big time as a theme, we need dogs. And I don't know if LaVine is a dog now because he's on the Bulls and feels stranded, but it doesn't matter, kind of. If you're cutting and playing hard and playing with your brain and your heart with Jokić, it's probably going to go pretty well. And I love Michael Porter, and I hope it works out and he scores 30 points a game till the end of the season and we win a championship. Great. But if it doesn't, I don't love love the idea of going to get Jimmy because he's old, although I think Jimmy 4 years ago is a literal perfect fit and the second all-star we've needed. But Jimmy looks it doesn't have the explosiveness either, even though he is a certified dog. So I think the cool thing is we're in the land of hot takes, right? But hot take here, anybody Jokić plays with, and I'm not trying to minimize, we should choose the right players. There isn't a perfect fit right now on the trade market. So you have to go, okay, if we do this, we try Levine, right? Okay, it's going okay, but Jamal didn't sack up or he doesn't have the explosiveness. And, we're going to get less for him July 1st. Well, great. Then however you look at it, Jokić or Malone or Booth or the Cronkies can trade Jamal July 1st after the season, and we still have Zach LaVine. And if we get two players for him that are freaking dogs that go to the basket and play good defense and rebound, the offense will come. We have the most Magic add water offensive person since Magic. So rant over, I guess.
I agree with the take that just find a good player and it will probably go better than we expect at this moment, considering how that player plays in his current team right now. What is your stance on this, Ray?
So I'll try to compact it. I would wait until the offseason. I think you'll have a lot more. You'll have the data that comes from the playoffs. That is, okay, who is really the problem here? Because I think there's a lot of places you can look where Christian Braun I think it might be related to his back issue, Christian's, that he was having a few weeks ago, that Aaron Gordon doesn't look as quick as he used to be, especially in some of these more mobility intensive matchups for him. Maybe it is Michael Porter and he's going to hold every playoffs. Maybe Jamal is who he looked like last June, or maybe he's a little bit more back to his normal self in terms of elevating his game in that context. And you have all your options open and you can negotiate from a position of a little bit more flexibility, where I think at this deadline, Denver would be moving from a position of, I think, desperation to some degree. That and to your earlier point, Michael Porter is, he's also your best shooter and your best rebounder. And that's an interesting, it's not necessarily something that you're going to get back for him. Maybe you get someone who is a good on-ball creator, but your team gets a lot smaller at a time where Aaron Gordon just strained his calf again. And Jokić is worn down, and you need all this front court help. And similarly, I think if you go out and try to leverage Mike for a backup center and something else, maybe you find a front court player who's a defender and a rebounder and a paint presence, but also you have this spacing problem where in order to have the two-man game function well, you do need somebody, at the very least, who teams respect from the perimeter. Otherwise, why do you not just plant 4 people in the paint?
Jer, you look like somebody who's screaming to talk about MPJ right now.
Sure, go for it.
So back to the point of being able to defend people at the attack. He's our small forward. He's not our power forward. Speaking of screaming, back in the dig days, I was completely against him being our power forward. I think it's the most important position on any Jokić team to play an effective defense with Jokić. And I think we've seen that as a result. Jokic's steals, them rotating when they won the championship, their defense was great. And guess what? They have, 4 of the same guys.
4.
Right? 4 of the same guys. So they should be playing good defense. But MPJ again he's a matchup guy. I think we got good matchups in that playoff series. And you'll see him. You'll see players literally dribble completely around him on the perimeter. He's not able to do anything against some of these smaller guys. And then actually there was a really bad one in one of these recent games where The guy dribbled right around him, and AG tried rotating, couldn't quite get there. So Jokić tried rotating, couldn't quite get there, went right to the rim. It was disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And the problem is MPJ can't do anything about that. This is who he is. This is how his ankles work. This is how his back works. So if I am going to roll the dice on a trade, I like the Atlanta team. I like what DeAndre Hunter and Bogdanovic bring to it. DeAndre Hunter is 6'8". That was Paul Millsap's height. He's not like a supreme defender by any means, but he's a good one-on-one defender, and he's a good team defender. He's good at rotating. So I don't think we will have these matchup problems with a DeAndre Hunter at small forward. And on the Hawks, last season, they only had one player who was a net positive, and that was Bogdan. And for him to come off the bench and even mix in with the starters, put Bogdan at the 2. You could put Christian Braun back at the 3. He's played a lot of 3 before this season when he took over for KCP. There's a lot of different options that you get there when you have both those guys in there. So just imagine the bench with Westbrook and Bogdan. That is starting to look pretty sexy to me. So I like what we get there. Who knows? Maybe they could even get a Larry Nance out of it and help with the bigger guys. But yeah, that would be my kind of like the trade that I like right now.
You mentioned Bogdan, and now people are going to say, listen to this crazy Serb. Now he's going to prop up his fellow Serbian. But here's the thing about Bogdan. Bogdan has never played on a winning team in the NBA, except if you count that one like Eastern Conference Finals run the Atlanta miraculously made a couple of years ago. But Bogdan has been playing on a really bad Sacramento team before coming to Atlanta, and he just suffered a lot as a real champion coming from EuroLeague, coming as the MVP of EuroLeague. And you know what? Sometimes we think guys that never had playoff success are losing players, losing game players. I mean, remember Devin Booker? Devin Booker had his first 3-game winning streak in his 3rd season, and his first 4-win streak in his 5th season in the NBA. Now, I'm not saying Devin Booker is the winner now, because he's not, but he is better. He is playing more competitive kind of basketball since he got guys like CP3 and later on Kevin Durant. So if you bring a guy who has a championship mentality like Bogdanovic to a team like the Nuggets to play with a supreme winner like Nikola Jokić, then you can expect that bump to be even greater comparing to some other guys in the league. Okay, sorry. You wanted
Quick other point on that too is Strawther. I'm over it. I'm trying to win a championship, and he's our worst defender. I even looked last year. He was playing less minutes, the exact same stats, the exact same results. He hasn't gotten better on defense. He actually compared to Bones Highland in the season where Bones got an attitude problem and got kicked off our team. This is who we have as our number 1 scoring option off the bench.
Yeah.
If you count Westbrook as the facilitator, he's the guy who's supposed to be throwing up points. So replace him with Bogdan, and you get both defense and better shooting. Like, God, that would just be beautiful. So yeah, I had to say that I'm not feeling Strawther.
Okay.
Can I just say something real quick about before we go to the whatever segment or last break, or are we out of breaks?
We have one more break.
Okay, just real quick on the DeAndre and Bogey deal. If we can get DeAndre Hunter and Bogdanovic, that would be amazing. I think the Atlanta Hawks know that if they trade those guys, this is my personal opinion, but I could be wrong. If Zeke was a better player, great. I think they know that if they trade Hunter, that maybe I'm wrong. As a talent evaluator, if you take out Hunter and Bogdanovic out of that team, to me they're like the Wizards with Trae Young. Like those guys are very heart and soul of what's going right, I feel like, for the last few years with the Hawks. And I would love to see Can you imagine how hard it would hit if Bogdanovich shot and played at peak MPJ levels or at peak Bogdanovich levels, and Hunter's cutting to the basket and taking up a really good forward slot? That would be amazing. Because I think one thing that we talked about on this podcast and for months and maybe even the last year is the legs of the Nuggets do not look fresh. Aaron Gordon is a fucking beast and the man and heart and soul. He's also a human being, right? And so we need De'Aaron Fox. We need somebody. We need 3 guys that are fast, like Christian Braun is when he's streaking to the basket or on the break. We need faster guys to pick up the slack of Jokić still runs incredibly well and wins everybody he's playing against. But again, we should be doing everything we can to be giving him a little bit of relief and be giving Gordon a little bit of relief, to be honest, because his game is insanely athletic. And at some point, only Jeff Green jumps like he's 22 until he's 40. Like these guys, like Jamal is explosive to the basket. But is he anymore? Like, I'm not saying he's not, because we've seen a few really good dunks and a few really good takes and layups and other explosive moves. But, like, we used to live the life of Jamal Murray explosive moves. That was it was like the future is bright. So to me, it's like the Nuggets really need to decide, are we still on the Tim Conley track of continuity plus a few other people, or are we on the track of blow up the continuity bunch, keep Gordon, keep the Browns of the world, trade MPJ for 1 or 2 players that'll play, and then in the offseason, if Jamal doesn't hit, you're going to trade him for less than you want, but you're still going to get other maybe better legs players, better dog players than we have right now. Because if there's a gun to our head and the playoff starts tomorrow, I want Jamal Murray in the clutch. He'll figure it out. But we got 50 more games. It's like
2 quick points.
What are we doing in 50 games?
I can be super quick. Just optimistic points. You're right not to get too excited about deals that will never happen. DeAndre Hunter has a bad injury history. They've actually given up on him twice. They spent the number 1 overall pick on his replacement, who is starting ahead of him. As much as they're thrilled for him to be having the season he's having right now, they still are invested in a future without him. The other point is Trae Young. If they're looking at trying to keep him on the team and keep him happy, MPJ and him are like really good buds, I guess. I don't want to get too in detail on this because I'm not supposed to know, but or I wouldn't know, but that would be helpful. If they're considering trading Trae and just rebuilding, then okay, there's less appeal there. But those are 2 good points going for us where they feel like right now is the right time to deal DeAndre Hunter because he's healthy and playing well. And let's make our boy Trae happy and get MPJ as their number 2 scoring option. He's a guy who's, a lot of people say he could have a high ceiling if he was just on a team where he could take more shots.
Okay, let's take one more short break. And after that, we'll do just some quick hitters. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we are back. Just some quick notes. Christian Braun is 3 of 22 from the 3-point range in the last 10 games. His defense is also not as impactful in that span. But that's normal for a third season guy, I think. Like, it wasn't normal from us to expect him to be as crazy good as he was in the first month and a half of the season. Just a quick thought. Do we think relying on CB to be your 4th or 5th best player is a realistic plan for a team that wants to win a championship? Andy looks like he's ready.
I don't think so. I think there's a skill problem on the team. I think Christian Braun is a very good player, and he is somebody who came out of the gates game 1 of the season and has played really hard for 20 games. Really hard. I I think he's an incredible energy guy. I think he plays good defense. His three has gotten better, and I think 3 of 22 the last however many games it's part of being an NBA player, I think. But I think that I'm getting concerned, like I said in the last segment, of just about our energy level. Like, it's just not fun to watch. Like, there is no team, to go back to what Poley said about the bubble, where if we had, or what Ray said about length, or you said about length, we were a lengthy team 2-3 years ago, and it was difficult to deal with, including MPJ when he was worse at defense. I think MPJ is actually better at defense. I'm with you, Jeremy. Like that I saw a couple of those takes, and occasionally he just does stuff where he can't help it. He's doing the best he can, and he has weaknesses. But I do think, to his credit, he shares the ball a little bit better, and he does defend quite a bit better. And just by being there, and just by being positional and with his hands up, he does make it a little tough to operate, right? So getting smaller freaks me out, but we just need length and energy. So I don't really know how to achieve that other than getting rid of MPJ takes away from length, but it also could potentially add to energy. If Zach LaVine's incredible energy. I'm sorry, like I've never been a Zach LaVine guy, but maybe he's great blasting to the hole, being like, oh my God, to your point about Hunter and Bogdanovich and Booker and some of these other guys weren't on good teams until they were good, or have never been on good teams. LaVine's been on pretty dog shit teams, the whole time, but is an athletically gifted player. He's like if Aaron Gordon was a guard or something. He can leap, he can run. I don't think he's like the best defender in the world, but is he better than Julian Strawther? Yes. Obviously, they're not apples to apples position-wise. I'm just saying, like, there's incentive. It's like Russ getting here. Russ is a certified dog. In a vacuum, if he was starting instead of Jamal right now, I think we'd win more games. Because the hub and spoke of Jamal and Jokić used to be electric, and it's still good, obviously, especially in crunch time. But like throughout the game, Russ and Jokić is the best two-man team. So we need people like, whether they're 35 or 25, they need to play with the fervor of Russ.
Yeah, we need to find a couple of other minimum guys who are dogs and just play them next to our main guys.
Like, oh my God, I can't believe we're here. Let's
Ray,
win a championship.
I want to ask you about Christian Braun's recent slump and what do you expect going forward?
So he had a lower back strain.
Fair.
I think that's kind of relevant to at least what I'm seeing. It's not changing his entire game, right? He's still trying to do a lot of the same things and play the same way, but he's a little bit less explosive, a little bit less energetic, a little bit less mobile. And I just get the sense that, Jamal Murray said earlier when he was talking about his own health, everybody's dealing with something. I actually think that's more true than we think about on a day-to-day basis. Aaron Gordon, Christian Braun, these other guys, they're also probably dealing with their own things. Because, especially running through those three guys, Aaron and Christian especially, I feel like lately they've not fallen off defensively, but just haven't been the same, performing to the same level that we would expect from them as championship caliber defensive lead options on a team. But I think he'll be okay. Like, especially talking about the shooting. I mean, that's going to be something that comes and goes. And with any young player, there's going to be a certain level of inconsistency. But in terms of his overall play, I do think some of that is.
Jer, just a 2-minute answer from you. Are you worried about Joker having 2 assists last night and 2 rebounds 2 days before that?
Yeah, I don't even know what to think of that. I don't even know what to think about not thinking about that is where I'm at. It's so confusing. So honestly, I would just be wasting your time if I tried answering this question any further. I'll kick it to somebody else. Maybe you have some thoughts. Somebody tell me. That's why I came on this show. I need this question answered. This is the best way I can think of.
I think he's had to do too much, honestly. Like, I think he's had to go
Yes.
to such a high level of basketball so early in the season. He's a human being like any of us,
No, he's not.
and there has to be some. He can't do everything. He can't score all the points and get all the rebounds and do all the assisting and do all the defending and wipe our asses. Like, it's you got to cut it off somewhere, and I think he's taking a little bit of a back seat in the stretch, and I feel like that seems natural to me just based on the burden he had to carry for the first 20 games or so.
Yeah, I actually think that Joker finally realized how long the season is and how insignificant some of these December games are, and that he can actually afford to get pissed at his teammates to make a point. I mean, we've seen already when the Nuggets would get to the rock bottom. After that, they would start playing great because he got pissed and he showed it to his teammates. But you know what? They've been hitting the rock bottom far too often this season. So this is why we've been talking about changes to the roster. Before we go, Andy, I already mentioned I listened to PHNX after that first Phoenix game, and I enjoyed how much all the Suns analysts think that Nurkic is the problem, that they need a different center, a center with simpler skills, somebody that can roll and catch a lob and protect the rim and not like miss as many bunnies as Nurkic does. So I had an idea, like, what if they wouldn't have Nurkic, but a really good young prospect at center, like Zeke Naji, who's equally good at missing bunnies? Like, how would you compare those two guys, and how would you help us choose between those two?
If I could start a campaign of Nurk for Zeke, I would. I think that if we're just comparing them apples to apples and not in a real trade scenario, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
don't allow
Yeah, first of all, on the trade scenario, the only thing I think we didn't talk about is if the best way the trade thing is going to work is if there's 3 teams, because then it becomes crazier and all the pieces can fall together. I have to say, I know that Serbians in general or Phoenix fans or whatever have their own opinions about Nurkic. I think he's a better player than he's ever been. I still don't think he's the greatest or anything, but I actually think maybe he just doesn't fit.
He would be a great backup center.
He'd be great. That's right. He's like if Plumlee was a little more light on his feet, and he's shooting a little bit better, certainly better than Plumlee. But the point is, it is interesting how the whole Nuggets bench from 2001 to 2023 is on the Suns, first of all. But Nurkic, I think it's fun that they don't like him either. I think it's always fun. I think it's fun that they are mad at Jokić because he hurt Cam Payne's feelings. I think it's great. I think to me, Zeke is the Nurkic of our team. We need to flush the toilet here, folks. Sorry, they're not comparable because they don't have the same roles, but I don't know. I think the Suns are better with Nurkic than they were with Ayton. So, like, I'm not watching them as closely every day. I don't think Ayton's as good of a player, and that's, I think, apparent on the Blazers, although Ayton's playing okay, I guess. The Blazers stink. The Suns are pretty good, I think. I think what you're seeing is, like, the Bucks, the Suns, the Nuggets, the Mavericks, all these teams, and regardless of conference, are playing about 500 basketball because there's tons of parity, and the whole league, like we talk about the ratings question, like why is the ratings down, whatever. The first 80 games of the season are kind of like a slog. When you get to game 55 of the season through 82, that's when it gets interesting. Oh, we're post All-Star break. This team got this guy. Can they make a run? oh, we got to the playoffs. The Bucks and the Suns don't look great right now. I think they're probably going to be pretty decent playoff teams, even with Nurkic at center or injuries on Team XYZ. I think Nurkic is better than DeAndre Ayton. So while I'd love to, I know
Overall?
privately we like, yeah, I think Nurkic is a better basketball player than DeAndre Ayton somehow. I don't know how, but I think he's more solid. I think Ayton has better athleticism, but like it's like kind of like comparing the worst roommates. It's like
I get
For
what
what
you're
is
saying.
worth, I think both of them would be great backup centers in Denver.
Fine.
I would enjoy both of them, but that's not realistic. Ray, when can we expect the next episode of Four Corners?
Probably when I get back to Denver. So like next Friday, Saturday, something like that. I am writing some articles. I'm writing a couple reviews for this game we just watched and the this doubleheader between the Suns that should come out sometime this evening.
Part 2, yeah.
Yes, First Blood and First Blood Part 2. Well, some of my notes and how I feel about the team, and just some interesting things about even the matchup itself. You know, talking about Nurkic, I think they were surprisingly. I don't know if he's a better player than Ayton, but I do think KD, Nurkic, and Plumlee together gave Denver problems in the way that they would be able to sort of put in that 4-5 pick and roll, put Jokić in compromised positions at a time where he isn't playing a lot of defense, and at a time where Aaron Gordon isn't at his physical best either. And they did a lot of that between Nurkic's screening, which I do think is very effective. Plumlee's plumliness, I don't know how to describe it. He works hard.
So please tell me what is the
but check
address
that out.
where people can find it.
fourquartermedia.net. You can find that, or just follow me on Twitter at Rayvone Hackshaw, and you'll find my links.
Excellent. Jer, Andy, do you want to promote something before we go?
Yeah, I want to promote the Nuggets. They need help. I do want to point out one stat real quick that is interesting to me. The Nuggets are 5th in the league in 3-point percentage. They are dead last in makes,
Attempts.
which is really interesting. For attempts, they are okay. So they're 30th. The distance between 29th and 16th, so the second worst and like the most middle team, is 100 attempts. The difference between the 29th team and the Nuggets is 126 attempts.
Yeah.
So it's like
and the Nuggets have played the least. Well, the Nuggets played the least games out of all the teams. So,
but we also had like the third ranked offense in the league. So it's a confusing thing. I'm not saying that they should shoot more threes. They probably should, but offense is working well. It's just very, very weird right now. So that's what I'm promoting.
Aju,
I'm promoting 2 things. For the Nuggets, I'm promoting focus. There should not be a game on Christmas where Jokić has 2 assists. That's because nobody made a goddamn shot. It's not the only reason, but it's a big one. For Jamal to have 27 the other night, and then Jokić has 2 assists on Christmas, it makes no sense. It'd be really cool, like sincerely. We have one of the most potent forces to ever exist in basketball. People need to make their shots. Like I feel like we need an 8th grade Catholic youth organization coach, which we basically have actually, Malone, but somebody who's like a third party to come in and be like, hi, play defense. Hi, make your shots. Like I'm sorry that the analysis isn't sexier, but make your goddamn basketball shots or take good ones. And then the second one is everybody needs to be kind to each other. Okay. The world is trying to tear us apart. Media, the social media, online. It's just a big pile of everybody beating their chest. Just be nice. We're all trying to enjoy the Nuggets. Don't give a shit about your political affiliations. Just be a cool person. Help people out. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, gentlemen. Merry Christmas to everybody. We haven't even mentioned that. You can see the tree behind me. It's not a Christmas tree. It's a New Year's tree. I explained that a couple of times before, but it is up and running and ready. We actually just got it ready a couple of hours ago. When I say we, I mean my wife and my kids, because I was sleeping upstairs after a hard day of work. Let's call it like that. That is all I've prepared for you this week, my dear listener. And please, with a cherry on top, take the word prepared very loosely. Be well, be safe, be kind to everybody, as Andy mentioned. Call your mom, and until next week, Monte Morris.